Right. We are nearing the end of our deductive reasoning logical puzzle topic. And in the next section, we're going to look at a couple of other types of puzzles, just to see some variation. You don't want to get stuck into one type of puzzle for too long. You want to mix it up a little bit so that you can really develop that logical reasoning skill. Another one that's very similar to the lady and tiger problem is the knights and knaves. So the exercise 2.215 explains that clearly. There's no real build-up. John and Bill are residents of an island of knights and knaves. Knights always tell the truth, and knaves always lie. Now you meet them, and John says, "We are both knaves." From that, can we determine what type of person John is and what type of person Bill is? Now I'll emphasize again the two main strategies that we have as options. And I feel maybe in this one, the just linking sentences in your argument strategy is a little easier, but you can decide. We'll do both because it's good practice. So let's do what may be the more difficult one first. Let's call it strategy 1. Just see that we have options, and it's really up to you to decide which one you prefer. So now John and Bill, they can be knights and knaves. Only John is saying something. So let's maybe start with John, because we don't know much about Bill. So we could say, if John is a knight, let's just assume. You have to try. Let's see if this is possible. If we assume John is a knight, then we're either going to get to something that's possible, or we're going to get to something that doesn't match up somewhere. If John is a knight, then the rules of the game says then he is telling the truth. He's telling the truth. Now what does he say? We are both knaves. So if he's telling the truth, so both John and Bill are knaves. So just listen to this. If he's a knight, he's telling the truth, so he's a knave. How do you feel about that argument? That's not possible. If he's a knight, then he's a knave. They can't be both. That's a silly game. It's one or the other. So this is a contradiction. I want to practice these now. Yes, you don't have to use them in these puzzles, but there's going to come a time in the third part where this type of reasoning is behind the scenes, and we want to see it now, let it sit, let it be processed somewhere in your subconscious, and then when we see it in the number theory, it's not that bad, this contradiction idea. I'm making an assumption, something doesn't match up, therefore my original assumption wasn't correct. So therefore, we can conclude that John is not what we assumed, but the opposite, so a knave. Get that idea across. Then just let it sit. Forget about it for a while. You never have to do this right now. But we're going to come back, and this type of reasoning is always there somewhere, ready to come out. Make an assumption, get to something that contradicts something else, therefore my original assumption wasn't correct, therefore the opposite was correct. Any questions on that reasoning? Not easy for everyone, absolutely. So I want to just see it now, just be introduced. So therefore John is a knave. So he is he's lying. So John, being a knave, is lying. What does he say again? We are both knaves. That is a lie. Squeeze it in here. So they're not both knaves. John is a knave. They're not both knaves. Because that's what he says. He says we're both knaves. That's not true. So they're not both knaves. Let's write that down. So they are not both knaves. Therefore, Bill is a knight. So we have John is a knave, Bill is a knight, and we're done.
Is one of the rules of this problem that you're always going to have one of each?
No. But a person can only be one type. They could both be knights in another example. They could both be knaves in another example. Just like Lady and the Tiger, both rooms could have a lady behind them. So anything is possible. It's not necessarily a mix, no.
So how do you know that Bill's a knight?
Because I've concluded that John is a knave.
Yeah.
Anyone that's a knave is lying. Anything they say is a lie. Now let's look at what he says.
Oh, right.
John says we're both knaves.
Okay.
That's a lie. Anything he says is a lie. So the opposite has to be true, so it has to be a mix. Well, not both knaves. Because one is a knave, the other one can't be a knave as well.
But isn't he saying he's a knave when he says it? So then he would be a knave?
Yeah, because then he would be lying about it.
He's making a statement, let's think. He says we're both knaves. That's not true. Because he's a liar. We've concluded that he's a liar in anything he says.
So then he could be a knight and Bill could be.
No, we've concluded he can't be a knight.
Because of how.
Because if he's a knight,
Because knight can't. Lie.
then we get a contradiction. If he's in, it's not easy. It's totally fine. We have lots of time, lots. If we have to choose figure out what he is. He's either a knight or a knave, right? He's one of the two. So let's just for the moment pretend he's a knight and see if that's possible.
You made that assumption.
I make that assumption to see if something tells me later on that that's not possible. So if he is a knight, let's just see where we go. Then he's telling the truth. What does he say? He says we're both knaves. Can that be true? But if he's a knight, it has to be true. Therefore he can't be a knight, because he contradicts himself. If he's a knight, everything has to be true, what he says. But he says he's a knave, and that can't be. Therefore we have to conclude that he's not this, therefore he has to be a knave. So now we have extra information. Now we know he's a knave, so anything he says is a lie. Now let's look again what he says. He says we're both knaves. That's a lie. He's a knave, that's a fact. We've gotten to this point. They're not both knaves, therefore Bill is a knight. Tricky. That's why we're doing it. It's nice. It's just challenging enough. Now, of course, strategy one, I choose it first because it's the more difficult one. But I do want to see and just be exposed to this way of reasoning. What is the alternative? Well, same as Lady and the Tiger. Why don't we just list everything and see if that's maybe a more straightforward way of working through the answer, or working towards the answer, because it's manageable, because we only have two people, like two doors. So the options are limited. So we have John and we have Bill. John could be a knight. Now forget this strategy, right? Brand new strategy from the start. John could be a knight and Bill could be a knight. That's possible. We don't know it's not possible. We list all the possibilities. John could be a knight. Sorry, that was supposed to be a K. And Bill could be a knave. Or John could be a knave and Bill could be a knight. We're now assuming we haven't done this strategy at all. We thought, you know, seems really difficult. Let's try something else instead. You're not doing both. You're choosing which one is better for you. You won't do both every time. Just for now. So, again, because we only have 2 people, we only have these 4 options. Perfectly manageable. Just like Lady and the Tiger. So we're going to take a similar approach. So now we're looking at each possibility or each scenario one at a time. Nothing else is there. When you look at a scenario, nothing else exists. You're just seeing, is that possible? Does it fit with what they're saying, how they should behave, and all that? So it's similar to the slightly fancier Lady or the Tiger example, because if John is a knight, anything he says has to be true. That is a rule of the game. Let's look at what he says. He's the only one that speaks. He says, we are both knaves. True or false? False. They're not both knaves. That's nonsense. How he should act and what he is saying don't match up. Therefore, it's not possible. See the similarity between this and Lady and the Tiger. Or this the second, more complicated examples of Lady and the Tiger. You have a question, right? I just ignored you completely. Oh, okay. I'm just rude like that. Everyone happy why we say it's not possible? There's an inconsistency between what we observe and how the game works. So that's not happening. Next possibility, knight, knave. Now I didn't do strategy 1 at all. This is now what I could have done. So I don't know what the answer is. But if John is a knight, he has to tell the truth. What is he saying? We are both knaves. In that scenario, is that true?
No.
No, it's not true. Inconsistent, not possible. As soon as I find an inconsistency, it's all out. But I couldn't even look really at Bill because Bill doesn't speak. So I'm a little limited. I'm only going on what John says because he's the only one speaking. So that's not possible. Next scenario, knave, knight. So now if John is a knave, he has to tell a lie in everything he says. He says, we are both knaves. Is that true or false?
False.
It is false. So that is consistent with how he should act or behave. So Bill doesn't speak, so I really can't judge what Bill is saying because he's not saying anything. Oops. It is possible. And again, well-designed game. You can stop there, but let's keep going for the sake of practice. So nothing in that third scenario tells me that it's not possible. Now in the last one, just for practice, knave, knave. If John is a knave, he has to lie in anything he says. He says, we are both knaves. True or false? That's true, they are both knaves. It's not consistent with how he should behave. If that scenario was possible, he shouldn't be telling the truth. So this is not what is happening. And we conclude, John is a knave, Bill is a knight. That's what we got here as well. Thoughts about these two strategies? Is one significantly easier than the other one? That's really, there's no wrong answer. It's for you to decide. You like neither one of them? You have to like one of them. These are the two I can think of.
There's no strategy 3.
There's no strategy 3 I can think of, no. But perhaps you can. Just because I can't think of something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Can't think of a strategy 3, no. All right, so see the similarities?
So the first, either T or F you put, is whether
How
they're-
he should behave.
Okay, so whether he's lying. If
Yeah.
he's lying, that's false.
Just like in Lady and the Tiger, the second type of example, if there's a lady behind door 1, it should be true, and then I see what it actually is. And it should match up with what the king is saying. Now there's no king, but there are rules for how a knight should behave. Yeah, I guess that's the tricky part. When they should lie and they tell the truth, but that's actually a bad thing, it's a little confusing. That makes it fun. Sort of. Maybe. Next example is 216. We should probably do another one of these. And there are more in the additional examples with another person, just to make it more interesting. So these are the basic ones we have to be able to understand first before moving on to slightly more complicated ones. Now, same rules, John and Jack, residents of an island of knights and knaves. Knights always tell the truth, knaves always lie. That's not going to change. Now, both of them are saying stuff. That might help me a lot. Let's read what they say first. Not that it's going to mean much. But John says, we are of the same kind, while Bill says, we are of different kinds. Now I have to figure out what each one is. So let's go with our strategy 1, just in case some of you are undecided. See how that would look and compare it to strategy 2 and decide for yourself. Pros and cons, which one am I going to do in a test, because I guarantee you this is somewhere in a test. It's too nice to not be. Now, let's suppose, let's try and have some consistency here as well. If John is a knight, let's see if that's possible, or if there's something that contradicts something else, helping me to conclude this is not what's happening. If he's a knight, then he has to tell the truth. Then he is telling the truth. Now, what does he say again? We are of the same kind, implying both knights. So then, Bill is also a knight. Bill is also a knight, and therefore also tells the truth. So Bill also tells the truth, because he's a knight. What does Bill say? We are of different kinds.
It contradicts John.
But they're not of different kinds. He's supposed to tell the truth, but he's not. He's lying. But Bill is, in fact, lying. And that is my contradiction. Something doesn't match up. Let's spell this right. Yes. Something doesn't match up. If John is a knight, he should tell the truth. I don't know if that's actually happening. I'm saying, assuming John is a knight, let's see where that path takes us. Assuming John is a knight, he should tell the truth. When he says they're of the same kind, then Bill is also a knight. So Bill should also tell the truth. But Bill says there are different kinds, but they're both nice. Can't be. Yes.
Because they contradict each other in what they're saying, could you immediately eliminate the two situations where they're the same thing? Like, could you eliminate?
Yes, but of course there are many ways to do this. I'm trying on purpose to be different than strategy 2, which I don't want to list them all and eliminate. But you could, yes. You could mix them, you could do a merge of the two, many ways. I'm trying to contrast these two. Yeah, this isn't the only path at all. Is everyone happy with this contradiction? I'm really trying to practice this assumption contradiction concept because it's going to come up again. And then I have numbers on top and variables. And, well, we're saying that for part 3. It's not happening now, don't worry about it. I'm making it up. We conclude that John is not what we assumed, but in fact the opposite, a knave. Okay, so we have made progress, even though you get to a seemingly stumbling block. You have made progress in that your original assumption was not correct, therefore the opposite is true. So this is now a fact. John is a knave. Done. John is a knave. That means he's always lying. So let's say here, and lies. He's saying, we are of the same kind. That is a lie. They're not of the same kind. So what can we conclude about Bill? So Bill is different and therefore a knight. Now we should check what Bill is saying and if that is consistent with what we have so far. Bill being a knight has to tell the truth. Is he in fact telling the truth? Or is there another contradiction? He says we are of, where is he saying it? We are of different kinds. Yes, that is true. So what Bill is saying fits with how we should behave and everything is possible. Feelings? Our feelings are important. Even if your feeling is cursing me right now, or putting you through this, that's okay too. Any opinions that you want to share? The nice thing here is that you don't have to do this. I want to show you, but you don't have to. We can go to this, what I think is a preferred strategy for these puzzles, and totally fine. For our level of difficulty, there's nothing that you can do by just listing the possibilities. It's totally fine. So let's do that. So John could be a knight. Bill could be a knight. That is possible, even though it doesn't often happen in the questions. John could be a knight. Bill could be a knave. Or the other way around. Knight. Or they could both be knaves. Those are the only things that can happen. If we don't agree on anything, can we agree that those are the only things that happen? Possibly happen. There is nothing else. And we have to be able to list all the possibilities, because what if the one we miss is the correct one? So we start from the top, because why not? Knight, knight. What do they say? John says we are of, first, if John is a knight, he should be telling the truth, and if Bill is a knight, he should be telling the truth. Now they're both speaking, so I can look at both. If John is a knight, he should be telling the truth, and he says, we are of the same kind. True or false? True. That is true. So everything is still consistent with how they should behave. There's no reason to think that can't happen yet. Now Bill speaks, and he says, we are of different kinds. False. False. Now, yes, like he said, you could automatically throw some things out in this example, but not in others. And I want to have a strategy that I just always go through the motions. It's always the same. Not that you have to. You can take shortcuts if you see them, but you don't have to. So this is not possible. The downside of strategy 1, like we said with Lane and Tiger as well, is that depending on what they say and who speaks, your starting point could change. Luckily, these two are sort of similar, but it doesn't. You're not always going to start with John. Sometimes one says something really complicated and the other one says something simple, and then your starting point should be the simple one, probably. Whereas with strategy 2, you're always doing the same thing. It's all sort of boring, really. Always the same. But boring could also be easy. So that is not possible. And I move on to the next. Knight, knave. Well, John being a knight in this scenario means he should tell the truth. Bill being a knave, he should lie. Now let's see what John says. We are of the same kind.
False.
False, thank you. So I don't care what Bill says. This is not possible. You can check what Bill says for fun, but that's just for fun. It's inconsistent. John can't be a knight and Bill a knave. Next one. If John is a knave, he has to lie. And if Bill is a knight, he has to tell the truth. Let's see what they say. John says, we are of the same kind. True or false?
False.
False. Should I throw it out? No, it's consistent with how he should behave. If Bill is a knight, he should tell the truth. He says, we are of different kinds.
True.
That is true. So everything is consistent and possible. There's a really short B. Should we check the last one? It's our last. Yes. The answer is yes. The correct answer. It's our last one. If we don't miss it, you're gonna miss doing it if we don't do it. You're gonna sit there tonight thinking, oh, I shouldn't have said no. I can never take it back. If John is a knave, he should lie in anything he says. If Bill is a knave, he should lie as well. What does John say? We are of the same kind. But that is true. That doesn't match up. Not possible. And we have our answer. John is a knave, Bill is a knight. Any questions? Makes sense? The more you do, the better it'll feel. Like anything else. Totally manageable. If you can manage late in the Tiger, this is no different. All right. One more example. Well, let's read it first, and then I'll erase it while you process what we're reading. 217. We'll read it first. John, Jack, Jimmy, and James played a round of golf against each other. When they returned home, they all lied to their wives, as one does, about the outcome of the game. John said Jack was first. James said John beat Jimmy. Jimmy said I beat James. Jack said Jimmy was second. Determine the outcome of the game from the given information. There are no times. I have no shame. I wrote it there. It's there for everyone to see. I have no shame in admitting that reading that question once, I have no idea. No idea what the answer is. And you'll see with kids, they have no patience. Or they have a lot of pride. I don't know where it comes from. But they read a question, regardless of how long, They want to know the answer right away. And if I can't write the answer right away, well then I'm stupid. Or math just isn't my thing. Or something's wrong with me. No, it's a complicated question. And there's a journey that's involved in finding the answer. What could we do? This one I have explained there very nicely, so you can read through that when you want to review. What I could do is a strategy similar to this, because this has been working for us, I feel, and it was easy to understand. So let's make a ranking here. Now I have 4 places, trying to figure out who is where. Well, initially, I don't know anything. So anyone can be in any place. I don't know. What are the names? Just to add a little confusion, they all start with a J. John, Jack, Jimmy, James. So this is going to be a little tedious to write down, but once we set it up, it makes it easier later on. So John could be first, John could be second, John could be third, John could be fourth, I really don't know. And I'll eliminate as we get more information. But it's similar to that strategy too. I just list everything and then start figuring out which one is possible. Or which one's not possible. Next one was Jack, I think. Jack could be first, second, third, fourth. John, Jack, Jimmy. First, Jimmy could be second. Jimmy could be third. Jimmy could be fourth. And James could be first. James could be second. James could be third. James could be fourth. That's also another thing. People are lazy. I mean, I understand laziness. But they don't want to set things up. They just want to see things magically. That's what math is, isn't it? It's just, you see it or you don't. No? Yeah? No! It's not at all. Yes, at the really, really high level, sure. There's some insight. Not even close to this at all. Doesn't work like that. Now, let's read some clues according to what they say to figure out what can we eliminate until we end up with the answer. Simple as that. Now remember, everyone is lying. They're all knaves. Everyone's lying. Everything they say is a lie. We might as well start at the beginning. John said Jack was first. That's a lie. So Jack was not first. So I can eliminate that one. Okay? Everyone happy with what's happening? As happy as you can be. I mean, it's the better kind of math, isn't it? There are no numbers. Think about it. Isn't it better? Well, you like the numbers. I don't know. Different. James said John beat Jimmy. John beat Jimmy. That's not true. That's a lie. John didn't beat Jimmy. So what happened? Jimmy beat John. So Jimmy beat John. That means John can't be first, because Jimmy has to beat him. Jimmy can't be last, because Jimmy beat someone. Now maybe there's more that you can cross out, maybe not. Maybe you're not sure. We have to always be sure. We can loop around and come back to that. Maybe when we're through and come back, it reveals a little extra. But at the very least, we can cross out a little more. I don't know what place Jimmy was. I don't know what place John was. It could be this way, or 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 this way. I don't know. So there's still some possibilities. Okay. Jimmy said, I beat James. That's a lie. So Jimmy did not beat James. So James beat Jimmy. James beat Jimmy means Jimmy can't be first. James has to be there. James can't be last because James beat Jimmy. Still don't know exactly how. Can James be here? No, because Jimmy can't be fourth. And James has to beat Jimmy. Can James be there? Here? Yeah, we don't know. Could be. Everyone with me so far? Okay, we keep going. Jack said Jimmy was second. That is a lie. Jimmy was not second. Everything they say is a lie. So Jimmy was not second. Ding, 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 ding. We have, yes.
Sort of jumping back to the last one, could you not conclude that James came first if all the other three are knocked out for first place?
Oh, I didn't even see that. Yes. Didn't even see that. These are all already crossed out. So this one is already there. You're right. Yeah. But even if I didn't, we would have eventually seen it. Yeah. Fair enough. I'm too close to the project. Let's see. Anything else? So we have two names now. And as soon as we have Jimmy in third, because it's the only option for Jimmy, this can't happen, this can't happen. So John still has two options, Jack still has two options based on this, James can't happen here. So let's just read it again to show that you're looping back.
Does John have to be after Jimmy?
But let's suppose I forgot.
Okay.
I can't remember everything that was said. And then the opposite. I only look at one at a time. I have a bad memory. So then I look back and start at the beginning again. John said Jack was first. Okay, that's already crossed out. Fine. James said John beat Jimmy. That's not true. So Jimmy beat John. Therefore, John has to be here and can't be there because Jimmy's here. Jimmy has to beat John. Therefore, Jack can't be fourth, and Jack has to be second. I just couldn't remember. So you can always look back and refresh your memory, so to speak. And there you go. Piece of cake. Sort of. If you have the right approach to help you keep track of everything, then it just makes it easier. Thus ends our logical puzzle section. There are a lot of additional examples you should be looking at.